Dr. J. Davidson, welcome back to our Hormone Detox Tribe.
Yeah, it's good to be here, Bridget. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you. So this is an exciting time for you and your business and your mission. You've got a big summit starting on Monday called the Mitochondrial Summit. I am very honored to be a part of it, and I'm a preview speaker, which is super fun. So you get access to my interview right away. But let's back up a bit. And what in the world, if people don't know, like, what is mitochondria? Why is this something we should know about?
Yes, I totally agree. Yeah, your talk was awesome. That's why we made it a early access. So as soon as you register, which obviously you can drop the link, you can get access to listen to Bridget's interview immediately, along with a couple others. Nikki Gratrex, her interview was awesome. Dr. Todd Watts was great too. So just really some awesome content. But why mitochondria is important, which is really the best question, because it's like mitochondria. I learned about that in biology class, in 10th grade. Like, it makes ATP. What do I need? What do I need to know else about it? But there's been so many changes and advancements that we've understood about the mitochondria that I see the mitochondria as being one of the future pieces to not only truly understand, but be able to modify and optimize to change somebody's health. So for instance, the mitochondria, besides it making ATP as, that's your energy within the cell, Dr. Bob Navio has published research out on what's called the cell danger response, which basically just means that when you have an infection, let's say you get the flu, right? Knock on wood, or you get a pathogen. How energized is the body typically, Bridget, when you get the flu?
Horrible.
Horrible. I mean, you're like, I just want to take a nap. I need to rest. I have massive fatigue. And this is what research is now showing is your cells shift from this just producing energy and everything's good to it goes into this immune system defense mode that ATP is needed to actually activate the immune system, and ATP leaves the cell and actually acts as a communication throughout the body to communicate with what's going on in danger. So we're now understanding that mitochondria just seems to be super important from what we thought of. It's just making ATP.
Yeah, I need to learn more about that. I've read some about that a little bit through the book Toxic by Neil Nathan that you probably know. And is that gentleman you mentioned on the summit or students of his?
No, Nikki Gratrex, one of the talks you get early access to, just like yours. Nikki Gratrex talks a good amount about it. I reference it in my interview. I think Ari Whitten as well.
Okay.
That was a really good one. And I can actually, if it's easier for your listeners, let me share my screen and I'll show you the schedule here.
I was just doing the same thing. Right?
So you'll drop the link below so people can get registered. It's free. It's starting on Monday, December 9th. So if you're listening to the recording, check the date here. But December 9th is the first day. So for instance, Nikki Gratrex is talking about switching off the cell danger response. So there's a reference to that.
Okay, nice.
I'm kind of going through some of the recent clinical breakthroughs in the order.
Nice.
And some big advancements in the functional medicine side. We've got Misty Williams giving her kind of patient's perspective on energy and what she's seeing within her community. Sam Shea is talking about even some pretty in-depth functional medicine testing for mitochondria. So that's day one. Okay. And then day two, that second person, I mean, she looks really familiar there.
She's the prettiest.
So you're talking about mold and mitochondria.
Yeah, that's really how I started to learn about mitochondria. And we can get a little deeper. You mentioned the presence of infection will make the ATP act differently, which is super fascinating. And one of your big specialties is infection, like Lyme and parasites. You've got Dr. Todd on here, probably talking about some connections there. And yeah, when I was so sick with mold, talk about the flu being tired, like same thing. Mold is like, I've never been so fatigued when I was at the height of that. And yeah, I didn't honestly have that background. I was still in that sort of adrenal model of energy, which we now know there's like so much more to energy than our adrenal glands. And that's when I started to learn about the mitochondria from Suzanne Bennett, who I don't know if is on your summit, but she wrote a book about mitochondria, and she was my practitioner for a bit. So I think that's when I got introduced to the concept. And mold is so incredibly toxic for the mitochondria. It's just like devastating for them. So if you're, I often say, like, if your fatigue is just in this like bone deep fatigue, there's a mitochondria involved, whether it's through infections like you were talking about, or mold, or some other toxin, heavy metals. So I really think if people want to be on this like cutting edge of health for themselves and their family, they need to understand the risks to your mitochondria, I guess you could say, and how to prevent them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It just understanding the mitochondria is really where I believe a lot of answers lie. And like you mentioned, the adrenal side and what's kind of been taught story wise. And now Ari Whitten, who's one of the speakers, goes a little bit more in depth on it. And he's done a lot of research and scavenging literature for 20 or 25 years and basically proving that it really doesn't exist. But it seems as if all those symptoms that people have, because the symptoms are real, right? Fatigue, and I don't feel good. I can't sleep. I feel like I can't function. They seem to all be actually linked with the mitochondria. And what's interesting is the mitochondria inside of the adrenals are actually where the cortisol is produced. So we always think of like adrenals and cortisol, but it's actually the mitochondria that are producing, those hormones like cortisol and the sex hormones. So we talk about going to the cellular level, but truly your mitochondria are inside of your cell. So if you have one brain cell, for instance, and obviously you have a ton of brain cells, but if you look inside one brain cell, you're supposed to have about 10,000 mitochondria within that one cell. And that's one of the most dense tissues, along with the heart, looking at the liver. So as we look at getting somebody well with chronic illness, it's not getting to the cellular level, it's actually getting to the mitochondrial level. And as we unlock that, this is where toxins that are starting to emerge more and understanding the radioactive element toxicity. You mentioned mold, which just destroys mitochondria. So as we look at getting somebody well, it's about giving attention to the mitochondria, which the summit's going through, and then also figuring out what are the sources of what's damaging the mitochondria, which of course you went through just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, and I don't know if you have more sources. Does anybody talk about just like longevity and beauty kind of as a concept with mitochondria?
Well, let me pull the schedule back up.
Yeah,
and
please do.
So
I love looking at visually like this. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got Jonathan Landsman going through overview kind of on 5 different things that he finds. Dr. Elena Villanueva talking about the genetic side in mitochondria. Dr. Ken Charlin is talking about Alzheimer's disease, brain, and mitochondria, which was just talking about, the density within the brain. We've got some scientists on, Jeff Griswold, really going through kind of the backbone of our body. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen make up 96% of the body. So much attention is given to minerals, but only about 3.6% of our body is actual minerals. So going through that. Quantum mechanics, which that's like that whole quantum science thing. It's like, man, that's pretty intense.
You get nerdy. That's why people love you, Jay. You get real nerdy.
It's we all need to up our knowledge level.
We
right?
We do. Every single one of us. Yeah, I love it too. I always want to learn. Why do we say this is too hard for people? Just catch what you can, learn what you can. You can always listen to it again if you didn't catch it all the first time.
Totally. Yeah. Just digest what you're ready for and keep at it, and your body's just gonna, and your brain's just gonna keep digesting more, and it's gonna make more sense. So Ari, very awesome evidence-based guy, goes through the research. He talks, there's multiple things about mitochondria, adrenal fatigue, things that he's found. He's the energy blueprint guy. Michelle Sands, naturopathic doctors, really going through the hormonal connection.
I like that one. I'll listen to that one for sure.
That's yes. Really cool. And I think she actually talks a little bit about genetics as well too. I'm pretty sure she hits genetics a little bit. I know Dr. Elena Villanueva hit it pretty hard. And then Jeffrey Gladden, he's really in the longevity optimization world. So this guy is just a machine and not super young. So that's his world. So probably so
there's a little longevity there.
Yep. I would say he's in the longevity side of it. We've got Dr. Randy Michaud going through the sports, and then awesome stuff on the mindset, which Anybody that's gone through the health journey knows that's kind of the Pandora's box, but it needs to be opened. Dr. Mercola is talking about what he's doing in his life, increasing his energy.
He's so fun, isn't he? He's always trying new things.
Yeah, oh, he's intense. I mean, I think he's been on anybody that's in the health field's radar of being an influence in their life at some point, you know?
Yeah, he was just at that, were you at Mindshare this year?
No, not this year.
You were. He was there and he was featured, and he's just like so funny. He's like up on the stage, like showing, I don't know if he talked about this thing he does with the bands and the muscles to like, he's just studying all this.
The blood flow restriction?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
He's just like, can't help himself, but like start talking about like whatever it is that he's into right now. I love that.
Yes, he actually talks about blood flow restriction on here. I think it was one of the earlier times he's ever kind of referenced it. Now You'll see, I think on his website, he's going to start talking more about it, but yeah, that's a cool thing for working out. Dr. Nick's talking about a bunch of different things with the mitochondria.
Nice. Okay.
Thaddeus, really talking about muscle and
the
importance of it.
Longevity work, doesn't he? This guy.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of overlap in longevity. Like Dr. Mercola is very interested in it. You know, Thaddeus, I think, is too. Tina Moore is really big on strength training and proper alignment and mitochondria. So she's talking about weightlifting and some of the differences of that. Let's see, we're on day 5, so 7 days. Is that Friday the 13th? I think that is. Wow, that's cool. So Friday the 13th, we've got Dr. Alan Lindsley talking about deuterium, which is becoming a big buzzword, just kind of creeping up there. It's like gluten was, 8 or 10 years ago, just kind of starting to scratch the surface. So you want to listen to that.
What is deuterium?
Deuterium is essentially heavy hydrogen. So hydrogen is 1 proton and 1 electron. Hydrogen can capture an extra neutron, which means it actually doubles the weight because the atomic or the periodic table of elements, hydrogen just an atomic weight of 1. Well, if you add a neutron to it, so it's a neutron, proton, and an electron, now it becomes a heavy hydrogen. And the heavy hydrogen has been shown to actually blow out the nanomotors, which essentially spin at like 9,000 RPMs, 9,000 revolutions per minute inside our mitochondria where the hydrogen are going in. That if a heavy hydrogen gets into that nanomotor, it blows it out and it actually damages the mitochondria. So the whole looking at like the oxidative phosphorylation pathway and glycolysis, it's all about the body's natural ability to make sure it's catching if there's any deuterium, which is heavy hydrogen, to actually remove it so it doesn't damage the mitochondria. So it's one you got to wrap your head around a little bit for sure. But awesome stuff, and really, I'd highly recommend checking that one out.
Yeah.
Dr. Don Huber, the second guy here, he's 84 years young. I got to interview him in person, and man, he is sharp as a tack.
Nice.
Glyphosate came out in 1974. He started researching it in 1975. So he, at least until the last couple of years, he's had the biggest library on glyphosate and knowing its toxicity and knowing its issues. So it's just
the worst. It's so prevalent.
Yeah, that's a groundbreaking interview. Jason Prahl's talking about the microbiome, essentially, and the communication of mitochondria.
Oh, nice.
Terry Walls is big with longevity and diet. So she's on here. We've got Dr. Dempster talking about the gut and mitochondria.
Okay.
Cynthia Thurlow with intermittent fasting and its impact on the mitochondria. And then there's 2 more days. This one's really big on, the first 2 speakers are on EMFs.
Nice.
Nicholas and Lloyd here on EMFs. And then we have some technology, shockwave technology that Dr. Matt DeDuro's talking about and its effect. So it's kind of a technology day and an EMF, if you will. Okay. William Pollock's talking about PEMF machines. Kurt is talking about low-level laser. And then Robert has a supplement company just of some mitochondrial supplements that he is representing and talking about that. And then the last day, Sayer G, have to listen to this, man. This guy is amazing.
He's so fun.
Yeah, but just the things, the in-depth that he gets into on the mitochondria and science is like, it blew my mind. Dr. Daniel Newsom, this guy's got 7 doctorate degrees.
Oh my
Like one,
gosh.
yeah, one for each day of the week. He's amazing. Talking about a
Wow.
lot of stuff with the bugs in our body and heavy metals, fulvic acid, those kind of things. Wendy Myers, really with heavy metals. Marcel Pick on stress and mitochondria. And then Eva Detko as well, really looking at the physiological stress. So it's just so hard. Like when you're looking at, okay, we got all these amazing topics and speakers, how do you categorize it, what order? But I feel real good about the flow of it. And I just recommend for peeps to get registered and then look at the schedule for each day and what seems the most relevant for you and start there. And then if you have time to consume them all, great. If you don't, you can always get it for your library or whatnot. But of course, you want to check out Bridget. She's on day 2, December 10th. So
Yeah,
make sure.
especially if you're thinking about, do you have mold? It's a good question to ask yourself. But I love this variety of speakers. A lot of people I'm not familiar with, a lot of topics I'm not familiar with. And again, I think that's like, at least with my audience, and I think yours is similar, like that's what they want. They want something they haven't heard before. They want like answers to mysteries in their body that this kind of more basic level of natural medicine doesn't touch upon. And that's important, to eat right and all this stuff. But there's just so much more for people who are feeling stuck in their health. So, well,
Yeah,
thank you
totally.
so much for walking us through that. That was super helpful. Thanks for putting it together. Anything else you want to share about it?
Just big picture, just for simplicity, wrapping your head around mitochondria, it does produce ATP and it produces energy at the cellular level. So it's super important. But now we know it's for communication in your immune system, and it plays a direct role in communication with your nervous system. So as we look at the vagus nerve and trying to get people into what we call the ventral parasympathetic mode, the mitochondria has a direct two-way connection between it. And everything that we're working on in functional medicine, as far as cleaning up our environment, mold and EMFs, and removing the toxins and clearing out pathogens, this all has a positive impact on the mitochondria. And as we start putting these pieces together, it just makes so much sense. So yeah, I highly encourage you, check out the summit. Like you said, Bridget, there's a lot of people dropping things that aren't well talked about. So really want to keep everybody on the cutting edge of health.
Yeah. So if you've watched this whole thing, you probably already signed up, but I'd say, chronic illness or someone in your family with chronic illness, health nerds, practitioners, you're just optimal health, even if you're doing a lot of things right, but you're still like, well, I still kind of slump in the afternoon, or I need my coffee, or whatever it is. There are ways. I like you included the intermittent fasting. That's something I've been pretty big on this last year. Man, what an energy producer that one seems to be. I love that. So there's just more we can do to optimize and get the most of our day. So thank you so much for putting this together. I'm super excited to check it all out.
Yes. Well, thanks for being a speaker on the summit. Thanks for doing the Facebook Live, and look forward to seeing everybody inside the summit.
Yep. Starts Monday. Link is right here. Thanks, guys.